All right, Brian, here we are again, and this would be episode number 3, and we're going to dive into some of the more technical aspects of microdermabrasion and let you, I guess, maybe take us through some of the issues that people experience, across the microdermabrasion environment. Of course, there's many different options people have, and a lot of what we hear is people having issues with pump size, performance, and clogging. So maybe take us through some of that.
Okay, Eric. When people are shopping for microdermabrasion devices, they come in many shapes and sizes. And their first thing they are tempted to purchase the smallest unit possible, to minimize the impact on their workspace. They think about floor space and counter space. It's interesting. The size of a microdermabrasion device can tell you a lot about the performance you can expect. Usually microdermabrasion devices are small as possible to accommodate the pump that's the heart of the device. But it's the pump that creates the airflow or the vacuum that carries crystals in a stream across the skin. Most microdermabrasion devices, you'll see a gauge on them, either a digital gauge or an analog gauge. And what those gauges are showing you is the amount of vacuum that the pump inside the machine will perform. And that's measured usually in inches of mercury. In Europe, they use a different KPI measurement, but we'll focus on mercury here. So when you turn a microdermabrasion device up, you're actually increasing the vacuum and airflow through the device. Most of the devices will run up to about 27 inches of mercury. That's a lot of vacuum. But it's interesting, and a lot of manufacturers sell their machine based on how high that vacuum reading will get. But it's interesting, it's not really how high that vacuum reading will get, if it'll get to 27 or 26. The real measure of performance in a microdermabrasion device is how quickly it'll get to that vacuum level. So it's how much air will move through the device, how much it'll suck the air out of the device, and how quickly it'll do that really makes the difference in performance. So if you look at a microdermabrasion device, small cases generally mean it has a small pump. Go ahead, Eric.
No, that's great. Okay, so just to help me understand a little better, when we talk about 27 inches of mercury, and I guess we're talking about 27 inches across the skin, or is that some other measure?
Actually, the measurement measures how high, when you pull a vacuum on a 1-inch tube of mercury, how high that pump will be able to raise that column of mercury. So if you're talking about 27 inches of mercury, the pump would be able to suck a column of mercury up 27 inches off the ground.
Got it. Okay, so it's like a relative measurement, not actual suction measurement across the skin.
Exactly, because there's a lot of other factors that would be involved in that. Orifice size on the handpiece tip, the diameter of the tubing that's involved in the device, and a lot of other things.
Right. There's probably some standardization with the tubing, or is that by device, depending on the manufacturer?
I think most manufacturers either use 1/4-inch tubing or 3/8-inch tubing, just because that's the most prevalent tubing in the marketplace.
Okay, so not a lot of give in that regard, but it's still a measure of how quickly it will suck up in through that tube. That's what the 27 inches of mercury is. And what would be a standard sort of market relative measurement you would see in the market on the lower end devices?
Right. I mean, again, most of the vacuum pumps are designed to pull between 24 and 27 inches of mercury, but the real difference in the pump and the pump size is how quickly it would be able to get to that vacuum level.
Got it. Okay, so just as a sort of baseline to think about this, if you're shopping for a microderm device, just think about it: the smaller the casing, the smaller the pump size, the lower the volume of mercury that's going to be able to get pulled up through the tubing.
Right, and it's really airflow that makes the difference in the performance of a microdermabrasion unit. So a larger pump moving more air at any given vacuum level will make quite a bit of difference in your treatment. First thing is you get a more consistent result. So if you have a better airflow, you have more crystals flowing through the device at every vacuum level. When you're doing a procedure, you're going to get higher performance out of that device.
So you can move through patients a little quicker too, probably. You can perform the procedure quicker depending on pump size, or it might take longer if you've got a smaller pump. Is that a fair way to think about it?
Sure, you can do it more quickly and you're going to get a more consistent result. But some of the smaller units, you're going to have less crystal flow, you're going to get streaking and other issues out of the device.
Okay, that's very helpful. And as we think about some of the other things we learn in all our discussions with customers, working with microdermabrasion devices, sometimes we hear that noise is a factor. What's the implication of pump size on noise?
Well, interestingly enough, a larger pump isn't going to have to work at as higher a level. So a larger pump generally leads to a quieter machine. Another beauty of a larger pump is because you have more airflow, even at a lower vacuum level, you can actually work on areas of the face that you normally wouldn't be able to work on with a smaller pump, say closer to the margin around the eyes and the lips.
Oh, I see. So you can actually adjust it depending on where there might be a little more risk for crystals moving around or getting in the eyes, so you can adjust the suction or the pump accordingly.
Sure, and just the mechanism with the crystals moving across the skin, where a smaller pump, yeah, you'd have more irritation on that skin. So the other benefit to a larger pump is it allows you to do more aggressive procedures that you wouldn't normally be able to do with a device with a smaller pump. Some of the indications for more aggressive procedures would be scar remediation, that the heavy skin left over with a scar, or calluses on the bottom of the feet, the elbows, or even the back of the hands. And there's actually even protocols that will minimize stretch marks with microdermabrasion, but for those procedures, you really need the power of a larger compressor.
Got it. So it's a big deal. It's for anybody that's looking at microdermabrasion for their business or for themselves, it's really a function of what's the use case and who are you going to be performing the procedures on. What's your, who is your client, and you're going to be able to accommodate more people with a larger pump size, whatever their circumstance.
Exactly. And just putting that in perspective with our Dermaglow device, you'll notice that our Dermaglow 2 is a little bigger than most of the microdermabrasion machines on the market. We designed it that way so we could incorporate a very large pump. Matter of fact, it's a 3rd horsepower pump, much like you might find in even a refrigerator or a lawnmower out there. So we get quite a bit of air moving in all vacuum settings.
So that's great to know for anybody that's doing this on a daily basis, and ultimately, if we've got the Dermaglow up against anybody else in the market and their device, our pump size is actually bigger.
Exactly. So again, that allows you for more aggressive procedures such as scar remediation, stretch marks, callus removals. It allows for good air crystal mixture flow at low vacuum levels, so you can work in more sensitive areas of the body, reduce irritation. It allows for more consistent air crystal mixture at vacuum levels for efficient procedures in all market. It's not forced to run at full capacity, so that minimizes wear and tear on the pump. And as we mentioned, it leads to one of the quietest devices on the market.
Okay, so where would there be a case for maybe hearing about a Dermaglow machine being a little bit noisy? Would that be a result of maybe an older machine, or a pump that's maybe a little bit older and been used at the high volumes for a long period of time? Or what would cause the noise factor to increase over time?
I think with a Dermaglow microdermabrasion device, primarily it would depend on what type of surface the device is sitting on. If you're getting noise and you're on say a linoleum or a hard surface, you might want to put some type of mat or something down below it to keep the noise levels down. Also, if the device was dropped or jostled in any way, it might have damaged the muffler or some of the noise canceling systems that we put in the unit. But generally, it wouldn't be an effect of the pump aging or wearing.
Okay. And any kind of noise factor, is that going to, affect the performance of the machine in any way? Do you lose power where there's maybe some noise due to other issues that could be affecting it?
No, I don't think the noise level would affect the performance of the device. Again, it might affect your client's satisfaction from the procedure, or bother people in the near vicinity, but generally that wouldn't be an issue. One of the first things we do, though, if we get a tech support call, is to test the vacuum of the device. By just testing the maximum vacuum level that the device will produce, we can diagnose many issues that might be going on with the device.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And is there anything else you think would be pertinent to talking about the importance of pump size and how that affects performance and or noise, or shall we call this a wrap for this episode?
Well, again, I would just suggest when you're shopping for a microdermabrasion device, you really want to consider the space constraints you have in your facility. A lot of people immediately think that they want a tabletop unit because it's smaller and easier to get out of the way. But if you really, as we've examined and talked to our clients, we've found that most of them have more floor space than they have counter space, and that a device that's on wheels and on the floor that might be a little larger might be a better solution for your business.
Okay, well, that's terrific. Well, I think that seems like a good place for us to stop for today. And, of course, folks, any questions or comments, we encourage you to, post below. If you're seeing this on iTunes or any of the other platforms, please send us a note. Let us know if you're enjoying the content. If there's anything that you think we missed or content you'd like to see, we'll certainly be sure to include that in the future. You can always come out to dermaglow.com and find more information out there, and feel free to schedule a call directly with Brian or I or anybody else on our team that is available to talk in that day. So anyways, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks.